I took out the last of our apples. This is it. They are not in great shape, but it'll make something. So I am going to make some cranberry applesauce, cut off all the bad parts and just use what is here. For the cranberries, I had frozen cranberries in my freezer since November, and I bought some from Azure Standard to make cranberry sauce, which I did, but I bought a lot. And so I still had a 5 pound bag, and I'm just going to use that cranberry and then the apples and do like a half-half mix to make a cranberry applesauce today. So I got all my apples in. I'm gonna put a cup or two of water in the bottom. This just helps the apples not stick down there. Now I'm gonna add my cranberries. This is a 5 pound bag, and I ended up having about 9 cups of apples, 9, 10-ish. So I was going to do half-half, but this is gonna have a little bit more apples than cranberries, which is okay. While this is heating up, I'm going to go ahead and get my jars ready for canning because I am going to can this. I'm going to do some quarts and some pint size just because we use different sizes depending on if somebody's just eating it for a snack or if somebody is taking it out and we're having it for dinner, then we want to have a bigger size. So we just do a variety of jar sizes. While we were in the middle of cleaning out the pantry, we have also started to do some preserving. So I am just putting it in this video so I can show you in real time what we are preserving, and one of those things is cilantro. We planted several plants and they started to go to seed, so we harvested all of the cilantro that we could, and we decided we wanted to freeze dry it. That was one of the things that we really, really loved from last year is freeze-dried herbs. They have so much more flavor, and they just some of the herbs that really lose a lot of flavor when you just dry them, like basil is so good freeze-dried, and cilantro is going to be the same way. We were able to use up the rest of the pumpkins and make them into pumpkin puree. And now I have so much pumpkin puree. I decided it would be really good to kind of prep in advance for when the baby comes and have some snacks ready to go for during that time. So I am making some pumpkin bread and some pumpkin muffins today, and in a bulk supply, and then I will just freeze them in my freezer, and then whenever the kids want a snack, it's all ready to go and I don't have to be in the kitchen during that time. Batch size, I am doing 3 dozen right now because I only have 3 muffin tins, but I would like to be able to do at least 6 dozen, maybe 9 dozen. Just depends on how much pumpkin puree I have. I would like to be able to use all of this up and just have it in ready to eat form instead of having to make stuff later. I already have plenty frozen for in the fall and later on, so that's my goal right now. And that's like I'm not like a superstar baker, so I really like this recipe for pumpkin bread in my friend Crystal's book, Freeze Fresh. I use a different one for the muffins. It's one that I like that I found online that has a little bit less sugar. I don't often do a lot of batch cooking like this, but when I do, I'm always so glad that I took the time to do it, even though it can be really exhausting to spend like half a day or a full day making big batches of food. But then later on, I'm always like so glad that, you know, the kids can just grab like a muffin out of the freezer or something that's already made. And of course, it does save you time in the long run and a whole bunch of dishes to just like knock it out and get a whole bunch done. So I'm glad I did this, even though it did take a really long time, and I didn't even use all of my pumpkin puree like I wanted to. I kind of got burned out after I did 2 batches of muffins. So we ended up with 6 dozen muffins, and of course the kids ate some like that same day. So there's probably about 5 dozen in the freezer. And then I have 3 loaves of the pumpkin bread. And when I put these in the freezer, I just put them in the gallon size Ziploc bags, and I kind of suck the air out so that they last longer and don't get freezer burn. The last part of what I wanted to make when cleaning out the pantry was I knew I had a bunch of beans in the pantry that I had not shelled yet. So I had the kids shell a bunch of these beans yesterday. I have black beans and I have cowpeas. We did do a lot last fall that we canned, but I didn't get to all of them. We have about 3 pounds of black beans here, and I saved a pound for seed. And then I saved a pound of cowpeas for seed. And then I have about a half a pound of the cowpeas left. I probably won't can the cowpeas because there's not really enough there. We'll just eat those with a dinner. So for the canning, I'm going to get these black beans in some water to soak. I know there's a million ways that you can can beans, but I really like to soak mine first just because I have had digestive issues in the past, and it's a lot easier on your stomach if you let them soak for the full overnight time, and then the next day rinse them off really good, and then can them in a different liquid. So the beans have soaked overnight in our cold room, and now I just need to give them a really good rinse. I also forgot to mention yesterday, and you probably noticed that I have slimmed up a little bit because baby came. He is healthy and doing well. I'm doing well. It's been over a week, and I'm just slowly getting into doing things again. I had some recording of this video while I was pregnant, and there were just a couple of things I wanted to finish for the last of it. One was the beans, and the other is I really need to organize all of my jars and then wipe down all of the shelving so that we're ready for this upcoming preserving season. I'm putting a couple bay leaves into the beans and the water. They are supposed to help reduce foaming. It also helps with the gassiness of beans. And the other thing is it's going to add a little bit of flavor to my beans. Now it's time to let the beans boil for about a half an hour. I also have another pot of beans here that I kept separate because I found some black beans in my pantry, and I'm actually not sure how old they are. I kept them separate from the batch that I knew was fresh from last year because sometimes if beans are really old, they will never get soft no matter how long you cook them. So I didn't want to mix in some like crunchy beans in with the other ones just in case. While the beans were boiling, I got my jars all ready to go. So now all I need to do is take out those bay leaves, and I fill the beans in each jar first so I can make sure I have a pretty equal amount of beans in all the jars, and then I fill it the rest of the way up with liquid. The rule of thumb is like don't fill your jars more than 2/3 full with the beans, then add the rest of the liquid. I'm going to be adding a teaspoon of salt to each jar. That's an optional thing. And then I leave an inch of headspace, and they get put in the pressure canner and processed for 90 minutes. on the last step of cleaning out the pantry for spring and for this upcoming season, what I do is I wipe down every shelf in here because they get dust on here. And I also wipe down the top of every jar that still has food in it. I'm wiping down this because these get dusty, and a lot of times the tops of the jars will get a little dusty, so we're gonna wipe those down. And then I'm just gonna organize my jars a little bit more, so I have my empty jars in one location, filled jars in another spot, because throughout the year they get all mixed up and stuff like that. So I store my jars up and down like this even when they're empty. I know a lot of people like to store them like this so they don't get dust inside, but I feel like they're a little bit tipsy like this, so I don't store mine this way. I am cleaning them either way, so for dust to get in the jar, it's not really a big deal. He's ready. I got a helper today, so yay! An important part of this cleaning and organizing process is it allows me to have everything in plain sight so that I can easily do an inventory before starting a new season. And that is really important because I don't want to waste time canning something that I already have a lot of left from last season. When I first started doing a lot of preserving, I used to think I just needed enough jars of a certain food to last me through the winter. But in reality, a lot of these things that we make, we want to eat year round. Like take for example our salsa. I still have probably 30 jars of salsa left, which would make you think that I canned way too much. But by the time we get to late summer and fall when we're canning salsa again, I will have very few jars left, or usually I do. So it's good to take into account as you go throughout the year to be able to see how much you actually need for that entire year. When I first started to preserve my food, I really wanted to be very strategic about it, and I wanted like a formula, but there really is no formula for how much to can for your family. You just have to take notes, take an inventory, and adjust. So if you have too much of something one year, you do a little bit less the next year. If you have too little of something, then you definitely want to bump that up. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a look into what I do each spring to prep my pantry for a new year.